very exciting topic today, one that's close to my heart, that is extremely relevant in today's dining society, I would say. So this panel is called the Plant-Based Revolution, and we have some incredible speakers. So we're going to kick things off with a presentation from Dr. Newby.
Thanks.
Woohoo!
Thanks, everyone. Welcome to the Plant-Based Food Revolution. I'm here to talk to you about actually food evolution, because as you'll hear, really, although there's various aspects which makes it feel like a revolution, really this is just one step in our long journey, our relationship with food, how we grow it, how we eat it, and its effect on health, sustainability, and everything therein. All right, so let me tell you by virtue of a very brief introduction of me, because I don't want to spend any time on that. You can learn everything you want to know about me at pknewby.com. But this is why I'm here. If you're not familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, you should be, in my personal opinion. There are 17 of them, and you can look across them. And so a lot of people in my world, scientists who are interested in health and sustainability in particular, are quite familiar with all of these. And one thing that you might note, if you're kind of glancing across them, is that food is indelibly related to all of them, and thus reminds me of one of my favorite quotes of all time. It is on the first page of my book and many things I write. Kurt Vonnegut, when you get right down to it, food is practically the whole story every time. When you get right down to it, food is practically the whole story every time. Health, sustainability, tradition, culture. Oh, and by the way, we need it to live, right? So food is huge. But the question is, how are we going to harness the power of nutrition and other sciences to create a healthy and more sustainable food supply, not just in 2050 when we're going to be 10 billion people, but in centuries beyond? Well, the fact is we have been, there's been evolutions in science, technology, industry, innovation that have always impacted food systems. Again, how we procure food, how we grow it, how we produce it, how and what we eat, and its effects on health and development. This has been happening throughout time, throughout our human history. Think about when we first evolved. We came down from the trees. We were what some people call hunter-gatherers, but actually, really, we were originally gatherer-scavengers. Why? Because it wasn't until the Stone Age, a couple million years hence, that we developed tools that we became hunter-gatherers and started increasing our animal consumption. Prior to that, we were actually really foragers who had plant-based diets. Much research has shown. Fast forward to about 12,000 years before present, we had the first agricultural revolution. We started domesticating plants and animals. Fast forward from there to the Industrial Revolution, which changed forever the way we grow and eat food, just as the ones did prior. Go forward to the Green Revolution, go forward to the genetic revolution, to the digital revolution, the information age, and now today, welcome to the fourth industrial revolution, when we're seeing the confluence of all of these different factors that will forever impact, yet again, how we eat and its impact on our health and also sustainability. So this is the plant-based revolution you caught from the title. That having been said, that actually the plant-based revolution is just part of a much larger food revolution, again, situated within the so-called fourth industrial revolution. So what I'm going to be focusing my comments on for the next couple minutes, you already heard a couple of my opening comments, which is 4 reasons why the plant-based revolution is here to stay. And not only is it really not a revolution, but it's going to evolve. And I'll tell you the ultimate stage of evolution is my final slide. But there are 4 reasons why it is here to stay, because the fact is, no, it's not just a fad. It's not just a fad. There are so many fads in nutrition: keto, paleo. You choose it, high carb, low carb. There's a fad for everything. But guess what? That's not necessarily science. But the plant-based diet, and some of them are science, by the way, but the plant-based diet is here to stay, and there's 4 reasons why. The first, well, it's the consensus of nutrition science. In fact, my own research area, I'm now a science communicator and an author and do all kinds of stuff, so please, I love meeting new people. Come and say hello. I have a couple copies of my book if anyone wants to check that out. But the point is, as a scientist, I know that, and I and others know that plant-based diets are the key to longevity, to chronic disease prevention, to sustainability, okay? This is not a fad. We've been shown this for decades and decades. It has been accumulation of research. This isn't the single study sensationalism. This isn't that diet use, that fad diet, or that one study you see flit across your news feeds. This is scientific consensus. Here's 2 examples of showing you how that is. 1, 80%. That number refers to the amount of chronic diseases that are preventable. 80%. We can't control so much in our life, but we can reduce our risk of chronic diseases, notably heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, obesity. Almost 100% are preventable through modifiable lifestyle changes. And diet is the single largest risk factor. Diet is the single largest contributing risk factor that will, if you change it, lead to 80% risk reduction for chronic diseases. Now, just that having been said, genes do also matter. The last thing I want to do is make people feel guilty. I know in my own life, no matter what I do, I have high LDL cholesterol. Ironic from someone who doesn't eat meat, right? I have a family history. Diet isn't going to compete with a lot of our other really strong signals, and we don't have the answers yet to personalized diet and nutrition. We are getting there. You've heard other talks about that here at the conference already. Over time, we will have perfectly nutrified food that is going to meet each one of our individual nutritional needs. We're not there yet, but what we do know is 80% are preventable, and plant-based diets are the key. This isn't one study, as I said. This is consensus. This is the consensus of the dietary guidelines for Americans. The committee 5 years ago concluded this: a dietary pattern that is higher in plant-based foods, such as veg, fruit, whole grain, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and lower in animal-based foods, is more health-promoting and less environmentally damaging than the average US diet. That was the conclusion of the committee of scientists who was looking at all of the data thus far. No, it's not just the US. This is the Canada food plate. Half the plate is vegetables and fruit. 3/4 of the plate is actually plants if you include whole grains, and actually even higher if you include the plant-based protein foods. In fact, eat protein foods from plants more often was the recent conclusion from the Canada food plate. These are just 2 countries I'm showing you. Brazil and many other places in the world all have similar dietary guidelines. Why? Because that is the scientific consensus. 2, it is the climate science consensus that plant-based diets are the key to sustainability. You all know that. You all know that. For one thing, you know that it's indelibly related to a better carbon footprint the more plants you pile on your plate, to the tune of about 30% more. Okay, so if you look at peas, pulses, tofu at the bottom, and again, you see that 105 versus 3.5 kilograms of greenhouse gases. And climate change is just one aspect, right? Let's not forget about the land use, the water use, how the things we need to grow in order to feed the animals, right? So this is now common knowledge. I was so lucky to have a mentor who taught me about the impact of diet on the environment 25 years ago. So it changed the course of my career, and talking about farm-to-fork nutrition has been something I've done ever since. But it's been so great to see people finally thinking about sustainability and diet. Oh my gosh, it's amazing, an amazing opportunity for everyone here in this room as well. Of course, the UN has been talking about this. Their first report was on livestock's long shadow, was in 2006. They have since put out many other reports. The UN, of the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, has therefore urged the move to a meat and dairy-free diet. That's for everyone. That is because there is no planet B, right? There is no planet B, at least not yet. And I'll get to that point in a moment. That having been said, I would be remiss if I didn't remind you all that 1 billion people around the world are dependent upon livestock for food and income. 1 billion people. The FAO, therefore, is concentrated on creating sustainable solutions with many farmers around the world, and local solutions are required. So just because there's a plant-based revolution here in the US and in other high-income countries, that is not the case in many other places in the world. So what I like to try to think about in terms of all my talks is always to alert people to the really big picture of food, and why it was so great, by the way, to hear earlier today about people working on not just plant-based proteins. These are proteins coming from things like, air, if you were in that with me early today, and other things that are going to really revolutionize food, not just here in the US, but also around the world. Number 3, food tech consensus. Producing foods from animals is absolutely unnecessary. Think about how revolutionary that is. 10 years ago, we didn't know this to be the case. Maybe the people working on it did, but certainly none of us in this room probably did. Maybe a few people who are really, really, really smart and smarter than me knew about this. I didn't know this. Beyond Meat, impossible. Mark Post's cell-based burger, probably soon to be known as cultivated meat, have absolutely revolutionized the way we eat. All of you guys are aware of this, and if you haven't had them, they are delicious, and they're not for vegans. The vegans aren't the ones eating them. It's carnivores who are eating them. It's omnivores, more specifically, who are eating them because they taste good. So when science and tech and innovation come together, as they have throughout human history, we get disruption. Most importantly, the omnivores among us can have their burger and eat it too, because it is creating less impact on the environment and it tastes good. You'll hear just in a few minutes from 2 of my colleagues about Just and milk, and I love that. It's like milk, but made for humans. So great. Because, yeah, we don't need milk, right? We all know that, right? Not a thing, really. Nutritious, but certainly not necessary. So I'm excited to hear them speak after me. But I also want to remind you that the plant-based revolution isn't just about plant-based proteins. It's also about the tools we have with technology, both traditional crop-eating technologies, as well as, of course, bioengineering, biotechnology, genetic engineering, that have the power to create more nutritious crops that can deliver things like vitamin A to children suffering from vitamin A deficiency in the developing world, who often go blind and later die. That's golden rice up there. Or you could also use traditional crop breeding or technology to create more nutritious foods, or to make those that will withstand the changing climate as years go forward. Number 4, consumers are biting. This is the 4th reason the plant-based diets are here to stay. So far we had nutrition science consensus, climate change consensus, and the food tech is available to make these products delicious. Consumers are biting because tastes and lifestyles are changing, and so are mindsets. A couple of statistics here. There are 80 million millennials. That's just in the US alone. This is, if you talk to people like I do, this is the market everyone is trying to solve and reach. 600 billion in spending power, of which a large portion goes to food. And these are all the reasons that drive diet. You can see health concerns, sustainability, environment, ethical, and of course things like weight loss are paramount drivers, and these are more so than they have been in other, especially sustainability, than they have been in other generations, except for Gen Z, which you just heard about if you were in the last session. Globally, 1 in 3 are concerned about the environment. Globally, this is a massive survey. These are new data, roughly. 1 in 3 are concerned about the environment. Now, only 1 in 6 are able to start taking the steps, and usually, again, why? Due to income, right? Because those of us who don't have enough food, or don't have nutritious food, or don't have money, or have too many jobs, don't have the luxury to say, hey, what is the most sustainable choice? Right? And this is why the plant-based alternatives are so relegated to those with income and who can afford and access it. That having been said, things are changing. These data don't even actually include the US yet. This is from the survey down here. But they showed that with decreased consumption of meat, soda, they were specifically focused on plastic, as I know so many here are with regards to packaging, and we're seeing increase in plant foods and eco-conscious behaviors, including towards food choices. Lastly, taste will always be first. We've already heard that, and if you're in this world, that's it. Taste is the primary driver, followed by cost. That has been the case for decades. for decades and decades. You see convenience also is paramount. In this particular survey, healthfulness kind of eked out convenience. Not usually the case, by the way. And sustainability, which IFIC does wonderful health and research surveys on consumer behavior, just like NPD Group does. So you can get a lot of great data here. But this is stable, you know. But the good thing is that sustainability is on the radar there. And nutrition and health has always been there. That doesn't mean, by the way, that people always act upon it, which is why taste is so important and why those plant-based meats have been so successful and will continue to be successful, and why Oatly and Just have been successful and will continue to be successful, because people want these options and they meet the taste and cost profiles that they need. And by the way, these are the ingredients. I know you're going to try to read them, and that's what happens, but you can get this from me later if you wish. But the point that I'm making 3 points here. One we'll discuss probably as a panel, which is, yes, there are a lot of ingredients. Yes, these are ultra-processed. You can't make a burger from plants if it's not pretty highly processed. It's freaking amazing is what it is. It's a food science technology feat, with the things they're able to do with plant proteins, just as you'll hear more about from my colleagues. But I'm making 2 other points here. One, people like to think about a burger as just being, it's just a burger. No, these are all the things that went into making that burger. And by the way, it also has its own profile of proteins, fats, amino acids, and all these other things, because it's food. Food is chemistry. Chemistry is food. Life is chemistry. Chemistry is life. There is no all natural. That's just a bogus marketing term. Second point I want to make here is that most people don't know that soy hemoglobin is genetically engineered. Okay? It's a genetically engineered ingredient, and in fact, that's a big part of the Impossible Burger's take on sustainability. And both these companies care about sustainability, but no people are actually even, or very few people, and I've never heard it mentioned about the GE ingredient. Why? No one cares. So it tastes good. So when taste and technology deliver on taste and convenience, which is what drives most people's decisions, then everyone wins. Everyone wins in those situations. So over time, again, just as we heard earlier, Gen Z doesn't really care, is not going to care about genetic engineering. As time goes by, the engineering tools end up being embedded quietly and incorporated into food, and as long as they're delivering benefits, it doesn't matter. And they will continue to deliver important health and sustainability benefits. That having been said, the future is meatless, my friends. This is a Klingon that is ordering a meaty something and an ale, a Klingon ale, from the food synthesizer, the food replicator in Star Trek, The Next Generation. That food not only appears immediately, it is perfectly nutrified, not only just to meet any individual's needs, but to meet this particular Klingon's needs. So my own thoughts about the future is that, it is absolutely meatless, but not today, not in 10 years. Probably not, I don't know, about 100 years old, that would be kind of be nice. Why? Because of those billion people who need livestock. But we know that in places like this, if the US and other high-income nations can lead this revolution, we can hopefully get to a place where we are all enjoying the benefits of a plant-based diet. But as much as it is a revolution here in those places, it is going to take a while for it to evolve into what ultimately it will be, which is this. That having been said, long live the plant-based revolution, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so very much. So I'm going to bring up Bjorn Oste right now. I really hope I'm saying that pretty well. Wanted to get a little bit of background from you. We've talked before about Oatly, and you are one of the co-founders.
That's right.
And I don't think a lot of people realize just how old Oatly is as a company, relatively old in the plant-based space. So would love for you to give us like a little bit of history about how you started it and when.
Sure, I'll be happy to. And as everybody knows, it's an overnight success story, right?
Yeah, overnight.
Only 20 years in the making. So it takes time to change consumer behaviors and attitudes. It's a long journey, and you have to be prepared for that journey when you launch, although I wouldn't say we were prepared for it necessarily. We didn't expect it to be that long. But it really, as I say, it's really my brother's fault, everything. He invented how to make milk from oats back in 1994. So that's even longer than that, right? He didn't quite know what to do with it. I had a career in the software industry and sold my company to a firm in Boston, actually. And it's just, I gotta try to speak with the microphone in one place,
like
I realize. So, sorry about that. But I joined him in '97. I felt it was time to switch from computer security to make milk from oats. Of course, at that time, everybody didn't understand what oat milk was, and they thought I said make milk from goats. So they all picture me sitting there and milking a goat. But, anyway, we didn't quite exactly know how to attack the market, but in 2001, we decided to go all in on a consumer-branded product, and Oatly was born. And we launched in Sweden, where nobody is lactose intolerant, and milk is holy, and so it was kind of maybe not the smartest place to launch, but on the other hand, if you can make it there, you can probably succeed in many other markets too. Mm-hmm. So the rest is history, as they say.
Well, history, and then when did you come to the U.S.?
2016.
And that's when things really...
We launched at a coffee festival in New York in the fall of 2016. And in 2017, we went from 10 cafes to 2,500 cafes across the U.S.
Wow. So it was really the entrance into the U.S. market that... Do you think that really launched Oatly's success to be the widely known brand we know now, or was it just kind of a coincidence in timing?
I think there's more to it than that.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I think we had a very unique and a very powerful go-to-market strategy. It helped us build and develop our supply chain, and we were asked by Whole Foods to launch in the U.S. many years earlier, but we realized to do that successfully, you needed a refrigerated product, and mm-hmm. to do that in the U.S., you need to build a plant. And it's kind of tough for a small company to start with building a $50 million plant before you've sold one product. So you have to stage that in some kind of way. And the coffee channel was excellent in the sense it helped build the supply chain, it helped build the brand awareness too. So
yeah. And then in terms of products, so most of us here have probably tried Oatly, maybe at your local coffee shop. That's where I get mine.
How many have tried Oatly?
Oh, good. Yeah. See, I think when it's kind of synonymous with oat milk at this point, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm not being paid by Oatly to say that. But it's wonderful. But I'm saying also, I know you guys sell a wider variety of products in Sweden, and you are starting to bring some of those products to the U.S. So what can people start to see from Oatly beyond just the milk in their cappuccino?
Has anyone tried the ice cream yet?
I have.
So there you go, a couple of you. I'd say 80% to tried oat milk, 3-4 hands. So for the ice cream, you can go and find our ice cream now predominantly on the East Coast, but throughout, I think, the country through Whole Foods now, and it's ramping up rapidly. So yeah, in Europe, in Northern Europe, we have about 80 different products, and we've had a benefit of being able to test new concepts on our home market, and whatever works, whatever we think is of good quality, we can bring out to the rest of the world.
Amazing. So we have lots to look forward to. And do try that ice cream if you have a chance. I think it's pretty fantastic. There's an oat-flavored oat milk ice cream. That was my favorite. It's pretty good.
It makes an excellent affogato if you put it in your espresso. Try that.
All right. That's a good little bit of background on Oatly. Daniel, you want to come on up and we'll talk a little bit about Just, and then get PK up here and we'll dig into some plant-based debates and discussions. So we've covered general plant-based revolution. We've dug in a little bit into some milk alternatives. And then Just does a lot of things. I know you guys do mayo, you do cookie dough, you're working on a cell-based meat, but your particular area is the plant-based eggs, am I right?
That's right, yeah. So we launched our plant-based egg on the market about a year ago. So we're in the majority of retail at this point. We're launching in food service as well. We just hit the Quotidian, for example, a few weeks ago. They actually replaced their top-selling egg frittata with our Just egg frittata. It's one of the first times anybody has replaced a conventional animal protein with a plant-based option.
Is this on? Sorry, I think he's coming down to check on you. I imagine many people have seen the Just egg. It's at Costco, which I think that's kind of a way to tell that you've made it mainstream. Yeah, you know, Costco, when it's 2-pack for $9.99, that's good stuff. But I remember visiting the Just Still no.
Hold on,
Get
2 seconds.
organized.
I'll be loud.
He's good at
You guys hear
projecting.
me? All right.
We're a cozy group. I remember trying that and was fascinated at how realistic it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's the point. So Dr. Newby before mentioned the now it's too
yeah.
loud. All right, good, perfect, okay. Dr. Newby mentioned the importance of taste, and that's absolutely the top driver. I think what you're seeing now in the industry is consumers want things that are plant-based. There is just a huge surge of people who are recognizing that plants are better for you than animal proteins. They believe that they will live longer and have healthier hearts if they incorporate more plants into their diet. And we and Oatly and other companies are right there meeting them with products that, I think for the first time really in a meaningful way don't make them sacrifice on taste. So I don't know how many of you have had a chance to try our egg, but I'll tell you, I think it will surprise you if you haven't had it. It tastes like an egg. I've never once seen somebody try it and say, oh, I don't like this, like it doesn't taste like an egg. It's really phenomenal to see the success of products like ours, like Beyond and Impossible. And the distribution is really just incredible. I don't know if any people heard me say before, but we hit Le Pain Quotidien 2 weeks ago. It's selling better than their conventional egg frittata had sold before we launched, which is, I think, just speaking to the true potential of this. And at Just, we are working to make a just food system. We believe in trying to find food that is better for your body, better for the planet, that is accessible to people, and then, like I think most importantly, tastes good. And that we're seeing people really respond to that.
So you have the scramble out. You guys can buy it, but then you also
is this
have
our video?
Yeah, let's let everybody see
Is
it.
this
if you
it? Can
haven't
we try?
tried it.
Yeah, it's good for people to
Let's
see
do a
what it
quick
looks
little
like, because
video.
I think it's hard to understand sometimes.
It's like pretty crazy.
Well, let's check it out. I think
All
it's really
right.
cool to be able to see it. Thanks, Cal. So let me tell you what you guys just saw. On the left, this is the mung bean. That's the process, right? So it took us 5 years and over $100 million to figure out what kind of varietal even of the mung bean can gel like an egg. Really important to find the right one that actually acts like an egg, that has the same texture and taste of an egg as well when you're cooking it up. And then, hopefully you saw on the right, it really does look and act like an egg when you're cooking it up. Super, super important to us. And again, it really gets back to a lot of our principles of getting food that is, it's good for your body and good for the planet, has to be accessible, and again, it really just has to taste good.
That was the peppiest version of I Fought the Lie I've ever heard.
Right?
It was
It was
really
good.
nice. I liked it. Very catchy. All right, fantastic. Let's bring Dr. Newby back on up here, because I think we have a lot to discuss. And she went pretty deep into who this plant-based consumer is now and sort of why we're seeing more of them and more of a demand these days. So I want to go a little bit past that and ask maybe specifically first with you guys, since this is becoming so popular, plant-based foods, how do you go about developing a product that's going to cut through all the noise and actually differentiate itself? Maybe it doesn't factor in for you because you've already done it. You're just like, yeah.
Well, I think it does factor in. Excuse me. Of course, it's important. I think it's, people talk a lot about branding. I think we have, in our company, there's a discussion that consumers don't want brands. Consumers don't care about brands today. Consumers care about companies on a mission that are authentic, transparent, and value-driven, and something that you can associate and align yourself with. And that means that you as a company, you have to be that. You can't just talk the talk, you have to walk the walk too. And really driven by the passion and the desire. So we look at Oatly, we are not an oat milk company that is sustainable. We are a sustainability company that makes oats. and oat products. And that to us, I think, and to the company is a key part of why we are so successful when we're competing with some of the largest companies in the world, and they are failing on the market with their oat milks, right? And consumers don't trust big food companies. Consumers, they have over many years now, the big food companies done everything they can to lose the consumer confidence by not being transparent, by not being upfront, by not tackling real issues, right? By putting all kinds of stuff in the products that we now realize make us obese or whatever, right? So I think that's a key message from our point of view to cut through. And then, of course, to Dr. Newby's point, right? You have to deliver on taste. Forget it if you don't deliver on taste. In my graph, I would say the second point would be that you have to deliver on functionality and functional properties, right? I think you guys with your eggs can say that too. If it doesn't look and feel and behave like what you expect it to do, you're not going to take it either, right? So taste, functional properties, and then a bunch of other components matter.
Cool branding, maybe.
Well, of course, the branding, but again, the brand must be genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, today, you have to engage consumers in this world of social media where it's click and like and share, right?
Yeah, as is Jeff though, but you guys you started off, I mean, just with mayo, or at least that's when I first heard about you, but now you've expanded so much. Like, what do you think about before you say, we're going to make a plant-based egg or whatever new product?
Yeah, I mean, I think egg for us was always the goal. It took us a long time to find the right protein source that could act like an egg, especially on the functionality standpoint. We have the mayo and dressings and other products. The egg is the one that is truly disruptive and I think has the greatest potential to change the food system. It's such an interesting time right now to be in this space because never, any time that I'm aware of, have people started changing their eating patterns so quickly. There's some really interesting data out there that Dr. Newby has probably seen where in 2017, 1 in 8 of your friends were on a diet or eating pattern. In 2018, it was 3 in 8. This is a huge change. People all of a sudden are waking up and realizing what I put in my body has an impact on my health. I'm going to do something to try to change that. And also, one of her charts showed the number one reason is not weight loss. You know, I think you go back like a few years and definitely a few decades, programs like Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, these are the most influential ones that are all about just weight loss, low calorie. The number one reason for being on one of these patterns or changing the way you eat now is health. People are saying, I want to have a healthier heart, I want to live longer, and I believe that plants are the way to do it. So you have a huge number, like 40% of consumers now saying, I'm going to eat more plant-based. They're out there, they're scanning articles and the shelves looking for products that meet their needs, but like Bjorn just referred to, like the taste has to meet their expectations. I don't believe people are ready to choose products that don't taste as good, even for health, and I don't think for sustainability either, so you really have to meet them in the middle with that, and part of that is not just the taste, but it's the experience. So how can you make this replicate the experience that they're used to as closely as possible? Definitely taste, texture, functionality of the product, but also, you walk into a restaurant and that is an experience, how you order a product. If you're, starting to explore plant-based products, you're not necessarily at the point where you're going to look at the vegan part of the menu and, see what like substitutes are new and order something off there, which is why it is absolutely important for us to get on the main part of the menu, on classic entrees, have the messaging of it just not be exclusive to people and not make it, vegan kind of has this connotation for a lot of people of not good, like doesn't taste good. So making sure that we are using the right phrasing to welcome people who are looking for healthier options into this trend. And in retail, this is why we need to be in the egg set, for example, along with the eggs, and have people understand that this is like a normal choice. You don't have to go and dig through a substitute bin and find something that is, not going to be nourishing and delicious the same way that you're used to experiencing food.
Yeah, you mentioned health as one of the reasons that consumers do explore these new plant-based diets, and I know that's something that Dr. Newby spoke about, and Bjorn as well. We touched in our pre-call about how there's a lot of data floating around about like what is good for you and why, sort of like junk science. And I'm wondering, how you guys effectively communicate, and maybe Dr. Newby, just like what you've seen in terms of how that information is communicated to consumers and how people can know what is trustworthy and what is not in terms of, oh, this is healthy, this is not, this is good for the planet, this is not. Like, how is that information disseminated and how do you tell what's trustworthy?
I wrote an infographic about it actually, and I recently wrote an article about it. So if anyone
so just read your
wants
article.
No. I'm
Perfect.
just saying, because this is my whole life. Every day, it's why is nutrition so confusing? Is the most common question I get. And what I'm here on a mission to say is actually it's not confusing, but we do live in a culture of nutrition confusion. And there's all kinds of reasons for that, ranging from celebrity nutrition to flat out quacks, to physicians who don't know about nutrition and aren't trained in it, and to many other reasons. I mentioned in my presentation something that I refer to as single study sensationalism. I'm sure everyone caught the set of articles last week saying, oh no, red meat is now good for you. And actually that is not consensus, even though they came up with their own guidelines. That's another story for another time, perhaps over cocktails tonight, preferably. But whatever the case is, there's lots of strategies. So it kept on coming up, so I wrote up this free infographic to be like, this is what you can do, because it's complicated, because we do live in a culture that's really confusing for people. So again, it would be strange if people weren't confused when they get all this information. But that's why I became passionate about leaving my academic job and becoming a science communicator, because part of the answer to your question is we need more scientists in the mix that are building the narrative and sharing the science of what actually is going on, because otherwise it's just a din of constant junk science, and people can't know the truth, in part because it's not out there. So we do need more scientists that are active, and also science-based information. So it's not just, I'm not the only one, obviously. People who go to legit science, foundations. They can go to intergovernmental or non-governmental. But I mean, all the sources I gave, the dietary guidelines for Americans, are they influenced by industry? Sure, they are, less than they used to be, but still, that's why milk is on there, right? Dairy industry. I mean, we all kind of know that, but there are still a lot of good science-based guidelines. The Canada Food Plate, amazing. World Health Organization, amazing. And it's all consensus. And you guys know what it is. Plant-based, reduce sugar, reduce soda in particular. Whole foods are great. And some of the basics, eat more vegetables and fruits, that's been part of the guidelines for like 50 years. Guess what? No one is doing it. So, a lot of the major tenets of nutrition are actually out there. It's just that people aren't doing it. And by the way, why food tech is so important to help deliver health and nutrition and sustainability, because it will do so deliciously in a way that doesn't require behavior change, because people want that burger. They want the experience of the burger. Burgers are delicious. Who doesn't want a burger? I miss burgers, and no, those burgers from the 70s, so I've heard, but the older plant-based stuff, whatever they are, I'm not going to name them. Yeah. That's not the same thing, right? So these are really game changers, because the tech is able to deliver what people want.
And so how do you guys go about communicating that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think we owe it to people to be very transparent about our process. I think because these are newer products, people aren't totally sure about what's in them. That was a really interesting image that you had up earlier. By the way, beef is not just beef. There's actually a lot of stuff that's in it, as well as the feed, right? And what went into that feed for the animals. Super important to understand that. But again, we're very transparent about our process of working with farmers to grow the mung bean, to grinding it into flour and extracting the protein, and then mixing it with ingredients like garlic and turmeric, heating and cooling it to certain temperatures, and packaging and distributing it. We want to make sure people understand what that process is, and why we're doing it. I think it's very important for people to understand that. And by the way, we're all working to make things cleaner and better all the time. But I think it's such a tremendous time that we're in, where you can have all of these products that are, especially meeting protein needs and able to offer as much as or even more protein than some of these conventional options.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think to add to that, I mean, what you're talking about is transparency ultimately and authenticity, right? But so come back to when Oatly was first launched in a market where dairy was holy, to say the least, right? For us at that time to build a product around and actually prove the health benefits. We went through the effort to do, I think to date, 5 clinical studies on Oatly, and to show that it's extremely potent at reducing LDL cholesterol, which is an inherent benefit of oats. But we improve and may ensure in the process of making our oat milk that we maintain or in fact boost that property. And of course in the beginning it was very important for us to brand our product with that all over and talk about it. As we have broadened our market and broadened our consumer, we see now that the fact that we are delivered through health becomes more of an, it's kind of like buying a car, right? Not everybody looks and checks out the engine, but it's good to know that you have a V8 there, right? In case you know, need. So it's less important to communicate health benefits strictly, but it's for us have been a critical success factor that this differentiated us from the big CPG companies. And also, I mean, we launched in the midst of the soy craze when soy was the solution to all ailments on the planet, right? And maybe a little prematurely proclaimed, and sure enough, that turned out to be backfiring towards them. So there's a suspicion, I think, among consumers about unsubstantiated claims, and for us to go all the way, and in my new company, Good Idea, that's been extremely important, where we have a beverage that reduces blood sugar, right? And you really need to have your science behind you, because to succeed with a product like that, you need to have the whole medical community behind you. More scientists, I'm all for it.
Yep.
All right, we're almost out of time, but we have time for one more question. One audience question. No? Do we not? Is that what someone said? Is the next panel at 4:30? Oh, God, okay, sorry, wow, we're way over. I just got so excited talking. So come and find these guys at the happy hour, and thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.